We're drowning in debt, and it all escalated within the last 5 years. And my question is, how can we navigate this terrible mess that we're in with all the debt that we have accumulated? And obviously, we have a large family. So we have 4 kids, and then my mom lives with us, thankfully. But we are at a negative every month, and we don't know how to go about this.
Okay, let's run through some numbers real quick. Okay, so let's
Thank you.
start with your combined income.
After taxes, 162.
Okay.
Okay.
And give us the debt, go smallest to largest.
The personal loan is 28,000.
Okay.
Credit card debt is 98,000.
How many cards equal that 98?
So my husband has 5, and I do have 5 as well. So that's a total of 10 credit
10
cards.
credit cards.
We're drowning.
10 credit cards for 98,000. So that's not even the worst situation we've ever done. And by the way, did you know that YouTube has invited me to their memberships boot camp? I applied and then I got a reminder that they have a session tomorrow. So I'll be joining and let's see what I can learn. But yeah, let's go ahead and tackle debt, which is what we always do every single video. Is this the first video of 2026? I don't even know. No, it's not. Or is it? I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. And that's what we're going to do today. This is Karina Lanta Mentorship. We're going to beat debt using velocity banking. And she has about $700,000 of debt. Now, I don't know her entire situation, but she says she makes about $168,000 after tax. And what is $168,000 after tax? So 168,000 divided by 12. That is 14 grand a month. And what kind of situations were we doing? Oh my goodness. I'm pretty sure we've done less income than that. And we tackled on what, 160 something thousand dollars of debt. Anyways, let's get to it. Velocity banking. Let's go ahead and tackle debt using this strategy that's so novel that I'm going to clickbait with you, or clickbait you to watch it. And in fact, this channel has kind of been going on the downhill. If you actually take a look here, YouTube Studio, I haven't been posting in a while, and you kind of see that, the ad revenue used to be like $100, and then I just stopped posting for like 2 weeks, and then, intermittent posting, and now I got to get to it because we got to make this go up. It's 2026, right? The strange thing about 2026 is that I feel like a lot of people are not excited about it because it's like, dang, we're in the future, and we're not like in rocket ship cars like the Jetsons, you know what I mean? So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. Velocity banking. What is it? It's a debt payoff strategy. So now imagine that you had $700,000 of debt, right? $700,000 of debt like this lady with the 4 or 5 beautiful kids living with her mother. There's something when I hear that, I really think that's very beautiful because I feel like that's very rare nowadays. Who doesn't love a multi-generational household where, grandma and ma, dad, grandkids living together? Yeah, I feel like that is the dream. That should be like the American dream, you know what I mean? I feel like she's living the dream and she doesn't know how good she has it. 14 grand a month after tax, $700,000 of debt. Now, obviously, I don't know what her expenses are, and I don't know where she lives, but we'll just kind of go through the situation. We'll do 7,500. So let's imagine that you have $7,500 of income after tax, so that's half of what she makes, and then you have all this debt, right? So what's the debt? You have 5 credit cards, not 10. So this is like half her situation, right? This is like half her situation. An auto loan, a student loan, a mortgage, and then we have personal expenses outside of that. So what are our most costly expenses? Well, it's shelter, I think, and then probably food, right? Shelter and then food. So we have the shelter line here, a mortgage, and then everything else, food, gas, insurance. Now, why do we have the mortgage in a different line? It's because we're going to separate out everything that's a debt, right? So we have 5 credit cards here, an auto loan, a student loan, a mortgage, and then personal operating expenses. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to copy and paste here the income and the expenses. And we're going to do something a little bit different when we pay off the debt, right? We're going to not save money. So you see how the checking and savings is $659 right here. If you ask the average person, hey, like, what's better, saving $6 or saving 0? Most people tend toward the $6 because the way that we judge ourselves is that we judge ourselves based on how big our checking and savings is. And we're going to kind of do the opposite of that. So obviously we have to make money, right? Making money is incredibly important, but we're going to focus on paying off a debt and focus on a number called cash flow, which looks similar to our checking and savings. So if you want to know what this looks like in real life, right? Basically, when money comes in, it just goes out. Now, where does it go? It goes into something called a line of credit. So this is my home equity line of credit for $373,500 home equity line of credit. So what is a line of credit? Well, it's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again, right? So a credit card is technically a line of credit, but the difference between a credit card and a home equity line of credit is that or personal line of credit is that it's just much more flexible. So if I go ahead and click transfer funds, then funds just come in, right? And then, yeah, they just come in. And then you could just use it whatever you want, whereas a credit card, it's a little bit less flexible. It's very hard to pay credit cards, or I'm sorry, loans with credit cards, right? You can use plastique, but it's not as easy, right? There are such ways that you can do it, but you want all the credit that you get, and what we're going to do is we're going to be responsible, right? We're going to pay off all of our debt and use a line of credit to help consolidate our cash flow. So we're going to assume that we have a $150,000 home equity line of credit. $150,000 home equity line of credit, right, at 8%. Now, given that you only have $6.59 in this situation, is it likely that the bank will give you a free and clear line of credit? And the answer to that is probably no. Why? It's because banks don't lend money to people who need it. And as a person who has a gajillion lines of credit, banks don't lend money to people who need it. So that's something that we have to be very aware about. Okay, banks don't lend money to people who need it. Okay, now what's the point of me telling you this is that if you had known this strategy way before, then you probably would have been fine, right? But because you're learning it now at a point in life where maybe you do make good money and then you're drowning and the bank sees that, they don't want to help drowning people. And a lot of times when people hear that, they kind of get angry because the way that bank marketing works is that they're to help you when you need it, right? But that's not how a bank works. They don't lend money to people who need it, right? Okay, so now let's go ahead and do this. So I don't know if you ever heard of the cash flow index, right? So what's the cash flow index? Basically just the formula of the debt divided by the monthly payment. So you have all that, right? Debt divided by a monthly payment. And then what you do is you move that debt based on this cash flow index number, right? So we have this number right here. You put it in this order. And then what you do is move that debt into a line of credit, right? Assuming that you do have one, but you probably won't at this stage. But assuming that you do have one, you move it there. And then let's just see how much debt this is. So 5, 8, 15, 27, 30. And I'm going to sum it up. So that's $85,000 of credit card debt. Now, why are we doing the credit cards first? It's because the low cash flow index number means that you get the most bang for your buck for paying off that debt. So in order to pay off this mortgage, I literally have to give someone $350,000 to get $1,100 of cash flow back in my life, right? $350,000 to get $1,100 of cash flow back, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to move these credit cards into here. And guess what happens when we do this balance transfer? Oh my goodness. We literally turn $6.59 to $2,834.09, right? And so now our final step is that we're going to make our line of credit as our main operating account, and we're not going to save money. Money goes into the line of credit, expenses come out, and then after every single month, even though we didn't make more money, our cash flow is now over $2,800. So we literally went from $6.59 to here without doing anything. And so now what we're going to do is this, and then what we're going to do is 2834.09. So how do we get the next month's balance? Basically, previous month's balance, interest, cash flow, subtract the cash flow. And then if you want to calculate the interest, it's based on the average daily balance, right? So you just copy this formula right here, get the interest rate divided by the 12 because the interest rate is quoted manually. Okay, and then now you see right here in 34 months, this has all been paid off, right? So 34 months, okay. And then now we do 34 months, 85K. That is so simple. Okay, so now we have these loan calculators right here. So we go to loan calculator right here, and then we just type in 34 months in these loan calculators, and then same deal, right? You see the current balance, take the cash flow index, take the lowest one. So you'll notice that even though this is a 3% loan, we're moving it into an 8% line of credit. No biggie, right? So I'm just going to do this. And this should be gone in like 1 month or something like that. Plus 9939.15. And then this is going to be 0. And then this is going to be $3,229.40. So now what we do is we update that cash flow. We do this right here. Minus 3229.4. Okay. And then this is 37 months. Okay, so 37 months, it's been all pretty much paid off. And then this is going to be 85 plus 22, which is going to be 107K. And then now we get our student loan. So what's our student loan? It's going to be 37 months, 63 grand, right? And what we're going to do is do something called chunking. Especially, so here's the thing, if the cash flow index number is incredibly high, like this is actually a 50-year mortgage, not 30-year, is incredibly high, and the interest rate is incredibly low, you want to do something called chunking, and I'll just talk about that a little bit later. But this one I feel safe moving into the line of credit simply because the interest rate is mostly similar, although you'll probably overpay a little bit. And then I'm just going to do this right here. Do this. And then plus 63976.69. And then now we got an extra $943 in our cash flow. And then now we got $4,000. Okay, so now I'm going to control this. Okay, so now this is 4173.08. Okay. And then this is 53 months, right? So 53 months. It is all paid off. And then that's going to be 107 plus 85. And that's going to be 192K. So in 53 months, right? So this is 0. This is going to be 53. Now the balance is 335,000, right? So the original balance is 350. With the 50-year mortgage after 53 months, how much interest would be? 45 grand, 335,000. So a lot of times people will freak out. Well, if I use an 8% line of credit, isn't that going to be really bad? And there's a possibility you might actually end up paying a little bit more than you have to, but not really, right? So because what happens is that when most people think of the payment amount, the way that the bank really thinks about it is minimum payment like a credit card, right? And then we can do something called chunking where we just move a piece of the loan into a line of credit and then just dump all of our money in. And you might ask, why would you do that? So that we can prevent the segregation of income, right? So if you never heard of that concept, basically the way that the bank is making money is they get your checking account and they split all of your money into many different ways, right? So that's basically what's happening here. And I think I've already done this before. Yeah, I think I have, right? So what is the debt payoff? Pay it 5.8 years. We're going to chunk $8,000 at 8%. So chunking just means you're just moving $8,000 of the loan into the line. So it would be like this, plus 8,000. And then you just kind of do it over and over again. And then you see that 8,000 getting paid off relatively quickly, right? Really easily. And then according to this, it'll take about 5.8 years. 5.8 years. So let's go ahead and do that. And then you see that 53 months, 53 divided by 12 plus 5.8, that's going to be 10.22 years. So 10.22 years, or I don't know if it's pretty much 10.3 years, right? And then we're debt free at 524,000. So I don't know what her mortgage debt is, but if she has $700,000 of non-mortgage debt and she's making 14 grand a year or a month, I mean, it's basically this times two in a way. And in fact, she's probably better off. Or maybe not. Maybe the mortgage is like 300,000, right? So 300,000 plus 700,000 of debt. Well, actually, this includes the mortgage. But I still feel like we can make it work, you know? I mean, let's just do this. I'm gonna just do this, okay? So let's say we have $700,000 of debt, 14 grand of income, and then we just kind of increase that cash flow. What's a pretty reasonable cash flow that we could make it within a couple, well, let's say 6 months, right? Assuming that we move that $28,000 personal loan to line of credit. Let's do 14 grand of cash. No, that's how much she makes. It has to be less. Let's do 7,000 of cash flow and see where she gets, right? I mean, it's going down. It's reasonable, right? So, all right. Yeah, I'm just kind of half doing this, but you know, I'm pretty sure her cash flow will increase as she pays off debt, so it's not going to be minus 7,000. Maybe we could get minus 10,000. That would be pretty sweet. No, minus 10,000, is that realistic? Yeah, 4,000 for expenses. Anyways, all right, well, that's it for today, folks. This is the first video of 2026, 10.3 years debt free. And I got to make more videos because it's been a while and this channel's kind of going a little bit silent. Okay. All right. Have a great day. Happy New Year. I know nobody feels the new year, like nobody's really excited, but I'll just say Happy New Year.